This is going to be called Ken's Oddities. So,
Ooh, you're so odd, Ken.
I am. I do have kind of an odd taste in things. So we're going to talk about some odd comics and maybe talk about some odd stories and see how that goes. And who knows, if it's successful, we might do this again.
A comic book look has a long history of odd things and liking odd things. And Ken's bread and butter. Yeah. Oh, exactly. See? And I mean, even though he's a friend now because John's met Sam Humphries, but anyway, shout out China the Poodle. Ken's main collecting, I would say, is you're drawn to a book that most people would never buy. Or that if you're looking through the thing, you'd be like, skip right over, because it's not usually a Batman book, it's not a Spider-Man book, it's not a Superman book, it's a book that you're like, why the fuck was that made?
And with that, I think we have our first candidate. I've actually picked up a couple of this series, but I picked this one up on Free Comic Book Day. It's the He Said, She Said, Woody Allen, Mia Farrow. It's both stories in one book, but the best thing about it has to be this fold-out picture of Sun-Yi. And I'm sure everyone's familiar with the story, but it gets even better.
Fucking Woody Allen's fucking his little daughter and then married her now. Everybody's familiar. He's a fucking gross weirdo.
And then you have this picture.
Oh my god. I cannot believe this is a comic. This is absolutely ludicrous.
It's not high quality by any means.
But somebody put some effort into the covers at least.
They did. I also have the O.J. Simpson Nicole Brown Simpson one.
Now, wouldn't that be interesting though if it was Nicole Kidman?
That would be a whole different story, which might tie into our conversation later. Another odd one that I got.
I want to ask before we go over those. Have you read that one at all?
I have actually. Well, I read the Woody Allen side of it, and the interesting thing about it is, at the end of each side, they give you a cast of characters to explain who, the lawyers are, and Dylan and Lark and Moses and Satchel. Those are the names of their kids, by the way. Satchel. So, yeah.
Not as bad as Blanket, huh, MJ?
But it was pretty interesting. It kind of makes the Woody Allen side really makes Mia Farrow sound really kind of nutty, and the Mia Farrow side, of course, makes him sound like he's a perv. So.
I mean, how hard was it to get through? I mean, was it a punishable read?
It's not a long read, so they're pretty quick, and it's just kind of
because I just feel like how in the. But yes, hey, this is Ken's Oddities, keeping it on.
I like them weird. What can I say? I have a couple. I don't think any of the other ones are super odd, but we'll go into. Oh, where is it?
You can't.
This one. I can't find it. I only have 4 or 5 comics, but I can't find it.
Well, here we go.
We're getting kind of political on this one, so I always think they can turn anything into a comic book. And here we have The Road to the White House, Barack Obama. Now, this is the 2008 presidential race. I also actually have the Hillary Clinton one at home, so it's an entire series. And it's historically interesting. I mean, seriously. I mean, they give all the candidates had their own.
Oh, this is IDW. I would have definitely assumed that it was Blue Water Press or one of those ones. I mean, that's a decent. The art is okay. It looks very dense with information.
It's actually, and it seems to be fairly accurate. It gives the history, and there's. Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of just prose, and on this one, I mean, shit, dude, look at all that exposition. That looks like an old Jack Kirby Stan Lee book. But
it goes along with I like to collect comics that are about real people, obviously. But I have one about Pope John Paul too. So.
I have to say, I don't know what came before that Spider-Man issue with Obama or the Obama book, because if that came first, maybe Marvel was biting on IDW's game because they sold a shit ton. With that Barack Obama.
I need to get the Spider-Man Barack Obama one.
Yeah.
I also need to get the Flash and Colonel Sanders one. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not seen that
There is a comic out there. It's Colonel Sanders from KFC and the Flash, and it's a real comic. So.
That's like a holy grail for the oddity.
You can't get much odder than Colonel Sanders. I got
What else we got, Ken?
Two of these here, I'm just not super weird. kind of weird. I am a big fan of variant covers. Now, I haven't read these stories. I basically got them just for the covers. It was a free comic book day, and they had a really good deal going on at the shop. So we have, the first one is Wolverine, but instead of Wolverine, he's a sea otter. Just chopping up the fish. How cool is that?
I mean, like, if I was going to pick out a Wolverine cover, the sea otter one would be the one I would never pick.
That would be the one I would pick. And the next one is my favorite one. It's Wolverine as a kitty cat working on his scratching post. Now, how cute is that?
Well, he's popping his claws, you know?
So I picked those up just literally for the covers. I just think they're hilarious. They're so bizarre. And, I mean, there you can see Cyclops is a dog in the background. And,
that's cool.
Apparently, I think Professor X is a turtle. So, very cool, very cool.
Very weird, but also, at least it's a Wolverine book, so, I mean, you know, not the inside's probably pretty good.
Yeah, it's the regular comic inside. So, you know, you've got Wolverine Logan doing his thing. Can't go wrong with that. Next one. This was another pickup from Free Comic Book Day, so you kind of can tell I had a stack on my desk that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's Star Trek: The Next Generation, Mirror Broken.
Yeah, Mirror Broken, and Ken came before, and we've been hanging out for a little bit, and so I had the pleasure of reading a couple comic books in this Odyssey pile, our Oddity pile, and this is one of the one I did, and I like to call this Sun's Out, Guns Out.
Oh, absolutely. Look at that. Apparently everyone in the future, in the parallel world, fucking ripped.
Yes. Apparently.
Even Data is getting in on that.
So this is, I mean, it's an oddity. It's a free comic book day, so you may have seen it. It's an IDW, so the same as the last publisher. We get... but this is the next generation in like some sort of weird alternate take. What if they were kind of badasses who wore cut off sleeves? Picard was just ripped with like Hogan-sized arms, but they're all ripped. I mean, Data's like a weirdo. Who wrote this? Let's find.
Are you familiar with the original Star Trek? There's an episode called Mirror Mirror where they go to a parallel world and there's an evil Kirk, and everyone's evil because you can tell they have facial hair.
Yeah,
if you look on the
goatee.
If you look on the cover there, Picard, he's all ripped, but he's got the facial hair, so you know he's a baddie.
Yeah, exactly. And this is written by David Tipton and Scott Tipton, so I don't know if they're brother pairs. And then art by J.K. Woodard. And I have to say, this art was super good. It's an electron or like a computer painted style, but it makes it so fun because it does look realistic to the characters we want. And yes, the Picard does have a goatee and is evil as shit, but the rest are evil. And fucking Yar, spoiler, gets stabbed directly in the goddamn back and killed. And then the person who does it, fucking Picard thanks him.
Great. I love that. You know, it shows the bloodthirstiness of that universe. And I actually like it because the main character, I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to go spoiler, is one of the most underused characters from Generations. I think he's a good character. I think he should have been used more. I relate to him, and I think he's a cool character.
He was a throwaway character. And not to mention, this is an oddity because it's blasphemy. I like The Next Generation. This is like some sort of fucking dark Avengers version of the goddamn... You know, I had to put up with this with John 6 years ago having to do this, and now you're fucking doing it with Star Trek? Jesus Christ.
And that way, I think I'm actually going to keep following this one. So it's got me hooked. I like the Mirror Mirror universe. Next one is here. They've actually got a couple different stories in here, but the one that I want to throw out for the oddities is Star Trek and the Green Lanterns. Yeah. This is a continuation of the Prism War. I don't know if anybody read the Prism War. I did. So if you didn't, you know, that's kind of impressive.
I have. I think Wednesday Comics mentioned it one time. I mean, I know they're Green Lantern people.
I thought it was
so people are buying it. I'm not buying a Green Lantern Star Trek crossover, but you know the Oddity Master.
I bought the trade. If it wasn't a trade, I probably would have. But the trade was definitely the way to go. But I thought it was an excellent story with the Prism Wars. Definitely worth checking out.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm sure.
I'm going to talk about this one. This one isn't so much an oddity.
But it's still kind of an oddity.
It is. You know, it's unique. We were at Wizard World recently, and we came across a booth there called the Hero Initiative. And the whole point of the Hero Initiative, it's actually a government-approved, how do they say it? Chartered non-for-profit organization dedicated to helping comic book veterans. Basically, they're helping the the pencilers, the artists, the inkers, the ones who don't really get the recognition.
The original ones. They created all the comics back in the 60s and 70s. All of the characters, 50s, 60s, 70s, all the characters that we love, they made them, and now they're older. They don't have retirement. They were,
screwed out of their money by the companies.
I mean, that's some people will look at it as such, but also they did sign contracts that would take them away, but that it was the industry norm, and it is terrible. It has been fixed a little bit now, but so this helps. And you mentioned, I know when you were telling me about it, Gene Colan,
Yep.
which is a comic book look original, because I'm a big Blade fan. He created Blade. I love Tomb of Dracula.
That's awesome.
And so they apparently, what was the story with him?
They provided him $60,000 in order to do a spinal stenosis and cataract surgery. I mean, he didn't have anything. He said pretty much without this, he would have probably been done. And so
That's
I mean,
so cool.
And it's not just doing things like that. They also are for people who helping people get back into the industry, or just helping support them in any way that they can.
Yeah. So the Hero Initiative, you guys definitely check it out and donate if you can. But
and the really cool thing about it is artists are donating like artwork, and you can buy the artwork from them, and the money goes to the initiative and gets distributed.
That's a good idea. If you're buying original art anyway, maybe look through here, and then you're helping a good cause.
And while I was there, I picked up the Hero Initiative limited edition Sandman by Neil Gaiman.
Yep, the Sandman Overture, the one with J.H. Williams on art, which is a comic book look favorite from Osmosis Jones and Batwoman and a bunch of other great stuff.
He literally donated this entire comic. He actually drew it and did it specifically for this purpose. It's an interesting read. It's a unique story. So I mean, I got a kick out of it. I'm not really familiar with the Sandman. I know he's part of with Lucifer from the show, and that's about the only reason.
Yep.
But
original Vertigo character. He's
very, very cool. I like the idea. I like the concept. When they explained it to me, they had some other artwork there that it was like you could buy and the money would go to it. But I'm like, no, I went with the comic. But yeah, I thought that was a great thing to do.
Of course, Neil Gaiman. That's awesome that he's doing that. So.
And the final
oddity, which I also read as well, and it has a huge tie to us.
I know, right? We were walking down the aisle in Wizard World, and we walk by, and there's a comic sitting there, and it catches my eye, and I go back, and that comic is Sioux Falls. And it's actually Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I'm like, hey, that's such a cool idea. Talking to the guy who did it, and I'm like, hey, I'm from Sioux Falls. He got a kick out of it. Really nice guy. We talked for a while. We came back to his booth a little while later and had a conversation and talked about some of the cosplayers and stuff. He seemed like a really great guy. I read the book. I loved the book. I really want to get the next one in the series. It's a unique take on the settler Native American story. Some of it actually is in Lakota. There will be something said, and it'll be in Lakota, and then it'll give the translation. And the thing I liked about it is it'll only do that so many times. You get towards the back of the book, and they'll just put the word in there, and then you have to go and look it up or remember what it is. So it's teaching you that word, and I think that's a great thing. Mm-hmm. The really cool part about it is it was based off of his actual family's kind of history. It's semi-autobiographical. Although I'm thinking at the end there's some sort of like supernatural thing coming. We just haven't quite got there yet.
I mean,
I'm sure that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah, and it's a steampunk era thing. I mean, the people are wearing metal boots and they have riveted hats, and I mean, it's definitely it is the Native American story, but it's completely different. They already have plants and energy, and it's all about energy.
Blimps, if you can see in the picture, blimps floating in the background. So it is very steampunk.
It is fucking brutal. I mean, it starts out with this dad just getting iced in the head in front of his little kid. Later, the soldiers come in and busting in on a family, ice the mom. It is very, very brutal, and it's definitely it is Native American against white people. Because it is very clearly that the white people are bad. They're all soldiers. They're all fucked up, and they're all just they just refer to Native American as natives as savages, and so it's super fucked up. It's pulled straight from American history, set in this alternate time, but definitely fucking crazy and brutal.
Oh yeah, and the main antagonist in it is Colonel Armstrong. So as of George Armstrong, Custer.
Custer.
I'm sure that's the
And if you show the picture of him, he looks like Custer. Blonde hair. I mean, it's Custer. Did you find it funny though that there is times where they're like in Mankato, Minnesota, and then they're in the Badlands, and it's just like later. It's like, well, if you wanted to go from Mankato, Minnesota to the Badlands back in these days, you're looking at a month.
Well, actually, being the steampunk world, I don't know what they.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly, we don't know how they're traveling. But by the cover, we're thinking maybe. I guess they don't because they got these electronic horses.
I guess
So maybe you're right.
That's the motorcycle of this world.
But yeah, and also the Native Americans, they call them reservations, but it's also like slums and ghettos and stuff like that.
I mean, and the thing is, it's actually roughly based on the Wounded Knee Massacre, and it's in the memory of the Dakota 38+2.
Yeah.
I mean, it is brutal, but it is. I mean, this is history,
and this is our history.
It is very similar to our history.
I absolutely appreciated it. It was extremely brutal. A little bit of the words did take me out of it. I want to like get into the story and feel the flow, and sometimes it was like a lot of Lakota words and a lot of looking up, and it felt like also teachy-ish. So I have white guilt as I read this. Very good story though, all the way through. Cool take on this thing that we've been taught and known in this area is very close to us. But then, I guess just a little bit pulled out of it that I think there was some streamlined storytelling things. There was some hiccups with the storytelling where I almost felt like it needed a couple more panels to mash a couple together. But I would say overall, this is the first time I'm gonna give a beer rating on this one, but I'm gonna give it 5 out of 6 beers.
I'm gonna give it 5.5 out of 6 beers. And I just think it's awesome that I don't know. I'm not familiar with Native American superheroes in comics. I know Apache Chief. That's the only one. I think it's cool that here it's a Native American superhero. I love that concept. I think it's time for it, the diversity of it, and it even has literally it is very teachy. There is like an entire section where it gives the history of the real world history of what happened in 1862 and goes over it. And I mean,
but it's really good if you don't know it. I mean, you should know it.
You should know it.
Yeah,
this is our history.
I was gonna say we know it because Sioux Falls is named after the Sioux Lakota Sioux, and so we're very entrenched in Native American culture because that's where we live. Most of the world, you always hear jokes from like Chris Rock and stuff that they're like they've never seen a Native American, because it's not their world. So you may be like that watching out there. Definitely check out Sioux Falls. Look it up. I'm assuming the creator's from Minnesota since you found him at Wizard World.
Yeah, I believe he is.
Yeah. So definitely, I'm sure you can find it. But Sioux Falls, what was the press from? I don't remember. Might be self-published.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Trepidation Comics.
Trepidation Comics. So definitely check them out.
Well, and we should probably say his name. Z.M. Thomas, and the art was by Amelia Wu.
Which was both of them very good. So I definitely think those are creators to look out for, and they're putting an original take on an idea. And so that leads us into our next segment that's going to wrap things up, but it's going to be real serious. So hang tight, folks.
Earlier, we were talking about a couple of books where they took place in parallel worlds, alternative timelines. But what if there are parallel worlds and just right outside of our reach and just around us at all the time? According to the laws of quantum mechanics, it's a possibility. But what if? I'm going to tell you a story about the man from Telred. You can Google this. It's a story I found online, so take everything with a grain of salt. I'm not saying I necessarily believe it, but what if? So, the story of the man from Telred starts in Tokyo, Japan, at the international airport. A man shows up at the gate and hands the man behind the counter his passport to be stamped. The man looks at it and gets a confused look on his face. He sees it's a passport, it looks authentic, but it's from a country called Telred. He's never heard of this country. It stands out as being odd, so they call security. They bring the man into the office and begin interrogating him, and they're asking him questions about where he's from. He's got currency in his pockets. He's got coins, money. He's got a driver's license. He's got this passport, all from a country called Telred. He says it's a country in Europe between France and Spain, and that it's been there for 1,000 years. He can speak Japanese as well as several other languages proficiently, which is not super unique, but a little bit bizarre. And so who knows if some of these languages were from Telred or not. And so the whole point of it is they are wondering where he's from. They bring in a map and have him point on this map where it is. And he points to what is known as modern day Angola. I believe is the right name. But it's between France and Spain. And he's surprised that it's called the wrong name on the map. He has no idea why it would be called that. He's got 1,000 years worth of history that he can repeat for his country that nobody knows where it's from. And so they're a little bit concerned. So they take him to a hotel and they lock him up for the night, let him go about his business. They're going to continue the interview in the next day. They post a guard outside his room. The next day when they go to check, he's gone. All of the documentation is gone. His passport's gone, the money's gone, the luggage gone. Poof. But the hotel, he never came out the door and the windows don't open. So where did he go? Is it possible he traveled through from one parallel world to another? Is that where he came from? Where this country was called something else? What if? So keep in mind that maybe there's other worlds out there that are just touching ours. And every once in a while, people slide through and disappear. Just imagine, what if?